Hi guys, and welcome to my studio. I'm Michael, portrait artist from Perth, Western Australia, and I quite often get asked, how do I paint fabric? How do I make it look real? So I thought this would be a great example to show you. This is a painting that I'm working on at the moment. I actually quite like this one. It's got the orange glow of the lamp going on here, and then the last of the evening light that she's enjoying. What I do is I quickly sketch the dress. I just put some fabric lines in there and put some marks for the fabric folds in there. But here's the secret to getting it looking real. There's the photo references that I took on the day. And this is, I'm just going to paint this bottom half. See, it's a lot darker than the top half. So I'm just going to paint the bottom half first. And what I've done is I've pre-mixed, there's 26 different values or color shifts and darks and lights going on in here. That is my secret. I tend to find that if I can pre-mix first, it allows me then to concentrate on where to put those darks and lights. And my color palette that I just use titanium white, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, Power Ruben, and that's my red. And then the yellow is Bermuda yellow in this instance. Now the black that I've got is just simply 60% of the blue and 40% of the brown. But this is a secret. I pre-mix all those colors. There goes my squeaky chair. And by pre-mixing those colors, it allows me then to concentrate on the painting itself. Putting those darks and those lights in the right spot is how you get your realism. I'm looking forward to painting this.
So let's paint. Okay, so here we are on the canvas. As I've already pre-mixed the paints. Now, when we talk about painting fabric, you'll hear some people say, well, the devil's in the detail. And the detail isn't in the buttons and in the lace work or anything like that. We're not actually trying to paint the surface texture of the fabric. What we're trying to do is the detail is in all the variations of the darks to the lights, or the values as they call it in painting. So when they talk about values, as you know, what we're actually talking about is the differences going from the blacks all the way through to the brightest whites. Now, at no stage do I actually use black. I do have black on my canvas, on my palette, but I actually, that's a 60% ultramarine blue mix, as I said before, and a 40% burnt umber mix, and I will add it to colors just to darken them occasionally. I prefer to darken with either my ultramarine blue or the burnt umber, but sometimes the black is pretty handy to have. The reason I've got it is I can shift it. I can actually put black and then put more burnt umber in it, or I can put more ultramarine blue in it, and you can start shifting. So what you see me doing now is I'm constantly looking at the reference photo. I often say it's a reference. You don't have to, I mean, look, I'm not a photorealistic painter. You know, my brush strokes are quite abstract. You know, I'm using it more as a guide. These pencil lines that I drew in, it really, I normally wouldn't do it, but it's good on the videos because you get to see where my mind's thinking. You get to see the shapes. So the detail is in the different values and getting the shapes in the right place. So we're never at any stage actually trying to paint fabrics, and there's no way I'm trying to paint fabric here. I'm constantly just glancing over at the photo reference, looking at the shape of where it's going, and I'm matching the values. So I'm just looking at my value. Normally I just put the value on the brush and hold it up, and yep. And my reference photo for myself is normally 3 to 4 feet away. As you saw, I'm normally got it a distance away. I don't have it right next to the painting because I do know there's people that will dab the paint onto the photograph, a laminated photograph, and color match that way. The reason I do it this way, the reason I get paint on, I've got a paint checker or on the end of my brush and hold it up, is because you're really trying to paint as if you would if you're in real life. So this is good training. If you've got your photo 3 or 4 feet away and you can put your paint on a white piece of card, or you can put it on the end of your brush and hold it up, you can look at the end of the brush, squint, see whether the value is right, and you get a bit of a color, whether it's more blue or more brown or more red or more yellow or more green or more purple, and you can shift your colors accordingly that way. So that's how I'm doing it. So what I do in this is I'm now just going to concentrate and spend a bit of time making sure I've got the dark areas in the dark. Now, these are not black, they're way off black. They're a mixture of burnt umber. They've got a little bit of my mixture of black in there, and they've got a lot of my red in there as well. The great thing about having the limited palette is there's a real cohesiveness in the paint colours. So as I'm mixing different colours, because I'm actually using the same colours throughout, there's a real cohesive, real harmony in the colours that are actually being put on. And I find it really therapeutic. So, as a few of you know, I came out of the business world. I was in business, had a lot of companies, and my daughter actually said, look, you should go back to painting. You used to do it before, and remove those stress levels and just do something really relaxing. And well, here we are a few years later as a professional portrait artist in Perth, Western Australia, doing full-time painting and no longer in what I would call a traditional business at all. And I absolutely love it. One thing I will say about because people do ask about my brushwork, and everyone's going to have their own style. I like to jiggle my brush as I'm coming down. I'll twist it and turn it, and you'll see that quite often. But another technique that I use, and I do get asked this because people can actually pick it up on the videos, I'll push the brush into the canvas so the bristles get splayed. Yeah, my brushes get a hammering. But what it's doing is actually not giving you clean edges. Remember, this isn't paint by numbers. I'm not trying to paint a clean edge here. So by pushing it in, it'll actually push the paint out into over that edge, and it gives it a really jaggedy look. And I often say this, it's really important not to paint smooth, not to try to blend as some people say, but get that jaggedy look. So if you push it and you pull it, what you're doing is you're pushing the paint into those other areas. And later on, when I've got paint colors and values going against other values, and I paint along it and I push the bristles in, the bristles splay themselves. They'll push some of that new color into the existing, and they will actually drag some of the existing into the new. That's one of the advantages of painting alla prima, wet in wet. I know alla prima actually means in one sitting, but we're using it a little bit in more of a looser term, that we're actually painting wet in wet. You will see parts of the canvas drying, because this took, I think I painted this over 2 or 3 days. So the detail, as I said, is in the value shifts and is in the shapes. So that's why you see me dabbing and pushing and it looks terrible when you first start off. I think this is one of the things, if you're not experienced in painting, if someone could walk into this painting now and just go, oh my goodness, that is going to look awful. Those colors are wrong. The values are wrong. It won't look right because we're against a paler background, and it probably won't look totally right until I get the flooring and you get the harmonization, because the orange woods of the floor that's going to go into this one will reflect in light back up into the dress, and you can't see the floor, so your eyes aren't making that adjustment yet. But when you're doing this and you're painting the fabric, my big advice is don't paint fabric. Paint values and paint shapes. You constantly see I'm looking across, even though I've done some sketching there, I'm constantly just looking across at the reference, and I'm looking for the value shift, and I'm looking for the shapes. I'm looking for that value there, and obviously a little bit of the color, but color gets all the credit and value does all the work. You could paint this in black and white and just do different shades of black to white, and you will get the same effect. But color gets all the credit because it makes it look a little bit prettier. But yeah, so the most important thing is the value. You can even get the colors wrong if you like. And you will see some paintings. You've seen those paintings that people do, and they use the wildest colors. But because their values are correct, it works. Anime is classic. You have a look at the anime characters on the cartoon. I've got grandkids, so I watch the cartoons with them, and I'm constantly fascinated about the wild colors, but they work. They work because they know it's the value doing the job, not the actual color itself, so they can get away with a lot. You just saw as I'm coming down there, that twisting and twirling motion of that brush and that pushing and pulling. And you see what I'm doing? I'm just blocking in these areas. This is interesting. This is one, so this is a red. So I've got Paro Rubin, by the way, as I'm using as my red here. But a lot of people use alizarin crimson. You know, red's red. You get the red that works for you. And the other thing I'm trying to do is push. And you see I'm pushing and pulling. And what I'm trying to do is get a texture on the surface. Now, this is a silk dress, and someone would say, well, it's meant to be super, super smooth. So why are you getting a texture? And it's something I talk about a lot of times, and when people ask me to help them just improve in certain areas, texture gives something for your eyes to grip on. And this is what I talk about all the time. The eyes will go and grip, and they will fix it for you. It's amazing. You don't have to fix it. You know this is true. You know this is true because you can walk up to paintings and artwork and get really up close and go, that looks awful. But you know the further you get back, the more your eyes fix it and blend it for you. So by having texture, it allows those eyes in those micro milliseconds that your eyes work in and functioning to actually fix it and blend it for you. You've got to give the eyes something to do. If it's smoothy smooth and blendy blend, the eyes have just got absolutely nothing to do and it becomes boring. This is just my opinion, obviously, but some of the great artists in the world, the reason I think it works, and whether you're talking abstract realism, like I kind of got a little bit of abstract in here, whether you're talking photorealism, whether you're talking just pure abstract painting, what works is the artist is giving your eyes something to do. And you can really see here, you can see another value going in there, and I've just blocked that in. And I say, don't the colours look wrong? You know, let's just be honest. You know, I look at this, and if I started to try and fix something right now, oh, what a mess I would make. So I'm just trusting my judgment. I'm getting the paint, I'm holding up next to that picture and going, yep, that's the right value, and it's about the right colour. And I say about because, look, I do get it pretty close, but I'm more interested in getting that value. Is it too light? Is it too dark? Got to get that first. So I will do a painting mixing video because, and I've seen a few people do these, and there's some people who do it really, really well. But you know, I'll do one. If you're mixing paint and you're mixing a color and you're trying to match something, always go for the value first. Always get the lightness or the darkness first. This is going to help you tremendously. Don't go for the color first. So if you're painting, black and white is obviously different, but if you're painting color, don't go for the color first. Actually go for the darkness or the lightness first. Get that value correct first. And then you can get the value and say, okay, it's the same value, the same shade. And then you can ask yourself the question, you know, is it too blue? Which one's blue? Is mine blue or that blue? If you can't get an answer for that, you can say, well, which one's more purple? Is mine more purple or that one more purple? If you don't get an answer there, you can say, okay, which one's more red? Is mine more red or is theirs more red? Or is that one more red? And you can work and you can ask the same for brown. You know, is mine more brown or is that one more brown or is that one more yellow? Is mine more yellow or is that more green or is mine more green? If you just work your way through that colour, and that's just the basic colour wheel, as you know, we've worked through, we've gone the blue, the purple, the red, I've come down to the brown, the yellow and then the green. You know, the yellow and the blue, because I'm going around the circle, so we know we hit yellow, the next colour is blue, so yellow and blue make green, and that's all I'm doing. You know, I go blue, I start at the top with blue, and I know the next colour in that colour wheel is red, so blue and red make purple, so that's why I went blue, purple, red. I've come down to brown, which is orange, it's just a dark orange, isn't it? And then the brown to the yellow, and I know the yellow between the blue, it makes green. So that's why I've just come in a circle there. Hope that makes sense. But if you ask yourself the questions going around the colour wheel in that way, so get your value correct, you will spot it. You may not spot it straight away, but you will, if you ask those questions, you go, oh yeah, that one's more blue, or that one's more red. And then if it's more red, then you know the opposite to red is green. So you just put a little bit of green, which is yellow and your blue, mix it in, put a bit of green in there, and hey presto, you'll start to kill the red. If it's too green, the opposite to green is red, so you put a bit more red. If it's too blue, you know the opposite to blue is brown, and so forth. So it really helps guide it. But as you're adding the other colors in, to match the color, it'll change the value. So always checking. So once you put a bit more green in, for instance, you may go, oh, I put the green in now, the yellow and the blue, but it's lightened up a little bit. So now I have to darken it. So to darken it, you would obviously say, and you darken it with either blue or red. So you're asking yourself which way it's going. If we're trying to make it more green, we'd probably darken it with blue, for instance. And that's how I work around. Now what you see is I'm filling in. I'll get back to my painting. Now you see I'm just filling in. This is interesting because I do hear a lot of people say, "Oh, loose brushwork looks fantastic," but loose brushwork doesn't mean sloppy brushwork. Doesn't mean just putting it anywhere. Loose brushwork means deciding the value and deciding the color and deciding where it goes and deciding the shape and then deliberately putting it in that place and that shape. You may overlap a little bit and you may get it textured, but it is deciding that and then placing it there and leaving it. So that's my definition of loose brushwork, is not to fiddle. We don't want blendy blend. I'm not going over it, and constantly trying to do. I'm just positioning it, moving it, tapping it, and going, it's where I want it. Now I will leave it. You see, I just do a bit of a hash mark over there, very, very lightly, and go, well, that's it. I'm leaving it. And you see all the lines I've drawn in. Now we can come across the top of her dress now. So loose brushwork is deciding the value and the shape and painting that and leaving it. It's not just slap it on any old how. And even some of my abstract artist friends, you may think that they just seem to be throwing it wildly around. They're not. They've got it in their mind. They know what colour's going where. They know the imagery they're trying to create and the mood they're trying to create. For me, it's all about light. It's all about mood. It's all about the atmosphere. I think that's what tells the story. I mean, this is a story of a lady. She's just enjoying that last of that evening light. And how many of us have done that? Sat by the window. You've got that evening warmth, that light just catching you. And just relaxing for that day. You've had the day, you've sat down and, I'm just going to have 5 minutes to myself. That's really what we're looking for in art, isn't it? The story. What's the story behind it? So I use the light and the mood and the atmosphere to tell the story. Now here's something I want to explain where light hits fabric. So here's a little trick. You see on the edge here, I've divided it into three. I've just roughly drawn three folds, not for any particular reason that it could be accurate to the actual image, but the reason it broke into three. Now here's a little trick to make light work for you. It might be a bit hard to see on the camera, but I'll just explain what I'm doing. What I'm actually doing, I'm going to paint a yellowy white. So the yellowy white is going to represent the sun, because that's what sunlight is. It's a yellowy light, so that's what we'll do there. But the next imagery that I'm putting next to it, and it might be a bit hard to see, is I then put a little bit of red with the white. So I get a pinky white. So then I mix a little bit of pink white in there. And then on the other side of it, I'll put more of that yellowy light, but a lighter value or lighter shade of it. And what I want to do is sandwich the pink in the middle of the two transitions from the darker yellow to the lighter yellow light, just on the edge of her dress there that you see where her knee is and her legs coming down. What that does is creates a real shimmer on the fabric. So it's just one of them little tricks when light is hitting something and it's transitioning from a darker, say sunlight, that it's a bright light, so it's yellowy white, and you want to transition it to a lighter one. Just put a little bit of pinky white in the middle of it of the same value, either the dark tone or the light tone, and it will give you a real shimmer and it will give you a nice edge there and work. And you can see as I'm just blocking in even more now and I'm making sure these shapes come down, changing values, changing the colors as well, and then forming them as I go around the floor. Now, I did some marks on the floor just to say, yes, her dress is scooped down there. Now what you have to do is look at it. And look, you know, you can see things, and you get better and better. But what happens, you're looking at it and you're going, yeah, I'm just going to paint this in first. It's not going to be accurate. Let me just get the shades and the values in the right spot. Then I can see if I need any darker or lights in there. And you see what I've done? I've just pushed that in. Now what I'm going to do is look at these shapes of this dress and imagine looking at it and going, well, it should be a bit darker under there. It needs a little bit of light caught on the top there. And that's all I'm doing with these folds on the bottom of the floor. And you see I'm being very careful. I've actually changed my brush to a smaller brush now. I think this is an either number 1 or a number 2 round that I'm using. And I normally use filberts, but just for this particular area, because I want to be accurate, is I've actually switched to the round. And again, it really comes down to the value shifts. Now, this isn't going to look correct when you first start doing it, and that's why I'm spending a bit of time. But you can see my brain is going, there should be some highlights hitting around here. You know, a little bit of sun just bouncing off, a little bit of pink coming off the floor. That's why you've got that mauve, whichever part of the world you're from, bouncing up there. And you see I'm just going to shape it in. So, as I said, we're not painting fabric, and this bottom half of this dress is just about done. It's amazing. You get all the darks in place, and they really start to work. Now, if you look at the dress where the knee is and it's coming down, you see that red that is coming through there. It doesn't look correct to start off with. And that's good. It's got no floor light coming off it. It's got nothing on the floor for your eyes to say, oh yes, there's a reflection there. I can see where it's coming from. So that's the only reason. So you can't fix things as you go along. You see, I'm trying to just get a fabric movement and really flick that dress. That paintbrush by is a number 5 filbert. And I am just going, okay, so I want my movement there, and I'm using the brush to paint in the movement. Basically, I want my shadows and my lights moving in this direction, and that's what I'm doing there. So it's quite easy if you break it down, and you see, this is probably one of those areas I do fiddle a little bit. I like to look at it, I like to sit back from it and ask, is it going correct? Once I'm happy, let's move in and start filling more of the canvas. You see I brought more of that red, a different value of it, but I'm bringing that up into the top part now because I do know there's reflections coming through and we want to capture those reflections. More important to change the values. So all my paints, as I said, I'm using titanium white, the burnt umber, ultramarine blue. My red is power ribbon, and my yellow is bemused yellow. And then I just mix the blue and the brown together, 60-40 ratio, to get the blacks that I'm using. And again, now I'm going to go to a smaller brush, but what I'm looking for is gaps in the canvas now. So, and here comes my little steady rod. Make sure I keep my hand steady as I get near her hand that I painted earlier. Sometimes I'll paint the fabric first, then paint the hand second. So, but hey, it's adventurous. You do it whichever way you like. But all I'm doing is looking for the gaps in the canvas, and I am really being careful here. And this is what I mean about loose paint brush strokes. When you actually zoom in, you actually see the brush strokes, but loose doesn't mean rough. You know, you'll just wipe that hand out and you'll just wipe all the niceness out. I will do a video on painting hands as well, because some people say, oh, you know, painting hands is difficult. I think because I come from painting still lifes first, painting still lifes teaches you that what you're looking for is value shifts and shapes. That's it. You're just looking for value shifts and shapes, and then the color is the third piece, but only, 5% of the actual puzzle. Your main puzzle is the value, and then the shape of where that value is going to go. So in here, that's what I'm doing. I'm really being careful now around her hand. And we're going into the top part of a dress. And this is going to be interesting because this is where the sunlight is hitting. And this is where the contrast between the top and the bottom really will start to work. So we have a transition here, and that's what you see me painting in this tiny little area here. There's a little bit of a shadow caused by her hand, and I want to be able to capture that on the canvas. It doesn't show up in the photograph, and this is the thing about photographs. Sometimes they won't catch what you want to catch. So I often say you're not just painting what you see, but you should be painting what you know. You know, we know if the hand is leaning over and the sun is coming through that window, there will be a shadow from her hand. Not a black, I mean, it's never black. So it's got color in it. It is lighter, but she is definitely casting a shadow into that area between her hand and her arm and the armrest of that chair. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just changing the values in there to give it some more definition, because obviously she's got fabric and folds, but there's no white going in there. We're not going to paint white, and in fact there's no white on her dress at all, but we're still going to be capture it, and the illusion will be that she's actually wearing a white silk dress. So this is what we're after. The pole that I'm using is actually wedged up against the wall. I've got a hook that I wedge it against the wall, so it's actually not touching the canvas. The camera may make it look like I'm touching the canvas, and I'm not. I'm well off. And you see, just in this area here, this is the painstaking part. But for me, this is the enjoyable part. You know, I'm still glancing. You see, I'm constantly glancing over at the photograph, trying to look at the shape, but then using my knowledge. And I think this is a big thing that you'll get used to as you paint more and more. You know there's meant to be something there, but the photograph doesn't see it. If I mention her jawline, if you go to the top of her head for the moment and you have a look at that jawline, look at that reflective light that I've got on the jawline. That is definitely not in the photograph, but we know because she's wearing a white dress and it's a white silk, the sun's going to bounce up and light the underside there. It's lighting her neck. There is a shadow on the neck, but it will bounce up and you will get that reflective shadow on that jawline. You know it's there. So even if the photograph doesn't show it, pop it in. The other thing I'll mention about her hair is, and I've just put this down now because I'm actually did a remix. I actually mixed some more colors just for the top part there. Here we go. And now we're going to start on the top part of a dress. So the hair is actually not hair. If you zoom in on that hair, you'll see that, hold on, he's just put some brush marks, put some various shifts in the right spot, and it actually looks like hair. My hand does block out a little bit. I do apologize for that. Sometimes hard getting the camera angles right. And I've only got the one camera filming this at the moment. But my hand does move in a second. Basically what I'm doing, I'm working on her just around that waistband there. There's a little piece where the leg comes up, it folds up, and there's a waistband. So obviously we know where folds of fabric, there's going to be darks. So we're going to start with our darks. And I think that's really important. You know, we go from dark to light. That's the easiest way to paint in oils, especially painting a la prima or wet in wet. I do mix it up a little bit. You will see me paint some lights and then some darks. What I'm looking for is that push-pull. Even though I'm only using a small brush, I'm still, you see that dab, and what I'm trying to do is push those bristles. I'm trying to splay the bristles, so whatever I'm painting, it's pushing that color and that value into the one next to it, and as I lift up, it's pulling them both together, so I never get those smooth edges. We definitely don't want that. So that's just like poster painting. If that's what you're doing poster painting, then yeah, you want the crisp edges, but I don't want that at all, you know. And now get rid of the pole because I just want to just do this a little bit of freehand. And doing freehand, you know, sometimes your hand won't be totally steady, you know, and I guess we've all been there. You know, you're balancing your knee on your leg on, or your arm on your knee or something, and your arm's got that little bit of a shake. That can be advantageous, especially when you're painting fabric. It stops you from being too smooth. So you see, as I work my way up, I'm making sure I'm getting those darks, and I am working my way up the dress now, and I'm mixing lights and darks together and concentrating really heavily on the photograph now of what shapes that those shadows are making. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. Oh, I thought I was going to sneeze. Sorry about that. Dear. And look, I'm not trying to paint any of her shape, her body shape, or anything like that. I'm just purely looking at where these values are going. I'm really looking at the shape of the values. And you'll notice that when it comes to her chest area, you're really trying to look at what shape the light is doing. And if you can get that shape correct and the correct value, then the illusion is it's 3D. And you've created depth and movement and everything that you wanted to create into this portrait. So this has been a really interesting portrait, because normally I'll do close-ups. So this one is as I say, a distance away. We've got some movement from the curtains. We put a little bit of movement in the curtains there just to show that, hey, there is something going on. You know, curtains don't sit nice and neat all the time in our houses. It's an older estate home, so that wallpaper and the wall isn't perfect, which makes it even more interesting to paint. But again, it's just darks and lights mixing together. So as I work my way up now, you see I'm using a finer brush now. I am using my number 1 round, and I'm dabbing and pushing, and I'm really looking for now, and I've changed the values. So the darks are not as dark as what they were down below, and you'll see this as I come up to this sleeve here, and just underneath here we've got the darkest spot there's going to be, because that's the armpit area, and we know as the fabric folds under there and her chest is forward and the sun's coming, it's going to give us a nice shadow underneath there. So we're being really, really careful not to ruin the previous work on the arm, but still trying to get some texture into that paint and into that finish. So that's a darker area there. It was really interesting transitioning to professional portrait painting, in the fact that I realized, in the bottom half of that dress, there's 26, I pre-mixed 26 different shades and colors for that. And that was what an artist told me. He said, where you're lacking is your variety in your values. And that really did stick with me. We get 26, and then constantly I'm playing in amongst those 26. I'm going, I need something in between that one and that one, so I'll mix 2 of them together. So you can imagine how many actual value shifts are in that dress. The more value shifts gives you more detail. That's the secret, is the more value shifts I can put into a piece of fabric or a face or a lamp or a wall, the more value shifts I can put in there, the more detailed it looks. But there's actually no detail. I'm actually not painting detail. I'm just painting values and shapes. It's the same with this sleeve. The illusion of the sleeve is, one, the value has to be correct, and then it's the shape. So that's why you see me constantly, again, I'm glancing at the photograph, I'm looking at a crease and saying, that crease that is there where that shadow is and that darker value is this shape. So even though I might have sketched something roughly to show me where that sleeve is, now I'm really paying attention and virtually ignoring the lines. They're a bit of a guide, but virtually ignoring the lines. That's why half the time, if it was me just doing it for myself, I probably wouldn't. I'd do the outline, and then I wouldn't. And I'm doing the outline so I get all my proportions correct. But I probably wouldn't bother doing the internal lines, because I know they're not going to mean anything to me once I start painting, because I'm more interested in what is on the paint and on the photograph. And having that photograph 3 to 4 feet away from me also stops me getting bogged down in nuances, little tiny flecks and pieces that are not important. There's something to be said about less is more when you paint. If someone was saying, you've got so much detail in this, it's actually less is more. So the advantage of having that paint that picture and having it 3 or 4 feet away from me, and you see I wear glasses so my eyes aren't the best anyway, it stops me seeing every little bit of nuance. I'm not trying to paint every bit of nuance in that. What I'm trying to create is a sleeve. I just want you to look at it, let your eyes fix it, and go, that's a puffy sleeve on a dress, and it works. So I don't have to go to the extent of painting every little dot. Now, if you're a photorealism painter, yes, you're going to be doing that, and you're probably going to have that photograph sitting right next door to you, and you're going to be checking every single little thing, and I know some great photorealism painters. It's not my style, and the painstakingness that they go to is absolutely incredible. But for me, I want to create the illusion of something. I want you to step back and go, wow, that is a dress. It's got the I know it, and your eyes, and you'll go, that is a silk dress. How did he paint that? Then I want you to walk up to it and get close to the painting, realize it is actually just paint, and be going, oh my God, it almost dissolves as you get up to them, That's the beauty of painting. And you suddenly realize that this smooth, silky fabric, when you walk up and you actually see it close up, there's so much texture going on the surface. There's paintings there where people have painted, just beautiful marble, polished marble. And you're going, wow, I saw a painting of David once, and, that's a polished marble painting. And you're going, look at that, wow. And I went up to it, and oh my goodness, the brush strokes and the textures and the movements that you could see on it, it was just incredible. You're going, how can someone paint with such a choppy, rough brush stroke, dabbed and pulled and pushed and moved? And then when I step back, my eyes fix it. And it's that grippingness is what I call gripping. So the eyes grip it, and then the eyes fix it. It's giving the eyes something to pause on. And when it's in context with everything else around it, the magic just happens. I think that's a great fun about painting. And yeah, I do hold my brush. People say, how do you hold your brush? I don't really. I've got damaged hands, so I've got part of a finger missing on that right hand, so that's probably why that brush looks a little bit funny coming out of there. I don't actually hold it like a pencil. Well, I can't. And then you'll see me hold it in all different sorts of ways. Just depends what I'm painting, really. I don't think I've got a particular way of holding a brush. I think it just depends what I'm trying to do. What I've got it there is just balancing on that middle finger, so I can just drag it and push it along. And I haven't got a grip on it either. So I don't actually grip the brush. And you'll see there, so I want to come along there. So one of my ideas of coming along, or one of my techniques, I'll bounce it on that middle finger, and then with that forefinger, I use that just to push. So I'm using my forefinger to push the brush along. And that for me gives me a more controlled and straight edge. You can see it balancing, and then I'm just using that forefinger. And sometimes I'll use my wrist, but quite often it's a little mark. You see my forefinger will just push the brush the way I want it to go. People ask about brushes as well. You must be using super high quality brushes. I watched one of the portrait artists in United States. I live in Australia. He lives in the United States. And he's got some gorgeous brushes, obviously. And then they gave him these old ratty brushes, El Cheapos, from the $2 shop, basically. Well, maybe just a grade up from the $2 shop. I said, there you go. His paintings were still masterful. I think there's a lesson there. Sometimes we want the expensive brushes because of the feeling, and, it's all nice. But, I've got a mixture. I've got Rosemary and Co, obviously, because I love Rosemary and Co brushes. Don't get me wrong. I've got some, but I've got some cheap brushes as well. And especially because I'm pretty rough on my brushes, I splay them out, as you know. I push and pull, and they don't last that long. But you never throw your old brushes away, because I like the splayedness on the brushes, because I don't ever want a nice, neat stroke. So that really answers the question that, painting is nothing to do with the brush. You often hear a tradesman say, a bad tradesman will always blame his tools. It's so true, because a good tradesman will still be able to create, even if you give them some bad tools. So poor tradesmen will blame their tools, and great tradesmen really don't care. just give me whatever and I can make it work. And it's the same with your brushes. So don't get hung up thinking you have to rush out and spend lots of money on brushes, because you don't. Paint is a little bit different in the sense that, can you paint with student grade paint? Obviously yes. The pigments aren't as strong, they don't last, and you end up using actually more of them because of the lack of pigment strength in there. So I would say definitely, if you're learning to paint, just buy artist grade paints. You'll actually end up using less of them, and therefore it'll actually end up costing the same as student grade paints at the end of the day anyway. And don't think, oh well, I'm going to throw this away, whatever. You just never know when you're going to paint your masterpiece. And here we are now, we're getting to these final touches on this lady, just putting a couple of different shades at the top there, looking at the shape. If I don't think I've got the shape right, I'll go in and just move the shape around. And remember, if you want to make something look lighter, put something darker next to it. So there is no white in that painting at all. You can actually see that when you look at it. But by the time we get the orange floor in and the wooden floorboards down below and the foot goes in and we finish the chair off in bits and pieces, it will actually look white, but it's well off white. You can actually see that. So if you want to make something look brighter, stop trying to put more white into it and look what's next to it and make what's next to it darker, and it will automatically make it look brighter. And there we go. The fabric is painted.
Well, thanks for joining me as I demonstrated how I paint fabric, in this case a silk dress. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, will you please like, comment, share with other people? All helps that algorithm. And if you've got any questions, just pop them down below. I love reading them and I'll do my very best to answer all of them. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.